Ruby Franke and Claire Duvall built their empire on promises of healing families, but behind the polished videos and glowing testimonials lay a chilling network of control, abuse, and secrecy that would unravel in the most explosive lawsuit of the year. Ruby Franke's marriage had ended with a storm of whispers, but most believed the dust would settle quickly. Publicly, it looked like a simple separation between two people who had grown apart. Yet, to those who knew the couple personally, there had always been tension beneath the surface. Her ex-husband, Michael, kept his silence after the divorce, retreating from the spotlight while Ruby reemerged with a new purpose. She began working closely with Claire Duvall, a polished and confident figure who introduced herself as a family healing expert. Together, they launched an online platform filled with motivational videos, parenting seminars, and exclusive retreats. They marketed their programs as the key to restoring order in the home, and their audience grew rapidly. Parents desperate for solutions to difficult behavior paid large sums to attend these sessions, trusting Ruby and Claire's smiling faces and reassuring words. Behind the scenes, however, a different story was taking shape. Michael, though no longer involved in Ruby's personal life, still kept tabs on his children. He began to notice changes that made him uneasy. The kids were withdrawn, overly cautious in their movements, and seemed hesitant to speak freely. When he asked about their experiences with Ruby's new methods, their answers were vague and scripted, as if rehearsed. His concerns deepened after overhearing his youngest whisper to a friend that she wasn't allowed to mess up or she'd lose her blanket for a week. At first, Michael dismissed it as over-strict parenting, something he had seen before. But then, strange rumors began surfacing online. Former clients hinted at practices that went beyond strictness, accounts of prolonged punishments, social isolation, and emotional manipulation disguised as discipline. One particularly alarming post described a child being made to stand outside in the cold for hours without proper clothing, supposedly as a lesson in resilience. The claims were shocking, but without proof, they were easy to ignore. Michael tried to convince himself that Ruby wouldn't be involved in anything so extreme. That illusion shattered when an anonymous envelope arrived at his doorstep. Inside were photocopies of emails, testimonials, and payment receipts. The documents detailed incidents in chilling precision: children forced into solitary rooms, parents urged to withhold food as a form of correction, and directives to cut children off from friends and extended family entirely. The sender had signed only with the words, "They need to be stopped." Michael sat at his kitchen table long into the night, sifting through each page, his stomach tightening with dread. The deeper he read, the clearer it became. This was no parenting program. It was something far more dangerous. And if he didn't act soon, more children could suffer. Michael spent the following days in a haze, rereading the documents over and over until the details were etched into his mind. The evidence was damning. Email exchanges between Ruby and Claire discussed strategies in cold, methodical language, referring to children as subjects and outlining plans to strip away what they called unearned comforts. There were spreadsheets tracking each child's progress in terms of obedience and compliance, with notes that read more like a training manual than anything related to care or guidance. Payment logs revealed that families were charged exorbitant fees for these so-called interventions, and in some cases, the cost doubled if parents requested emergency behavior corrections. Among the files were first-hand accounts from families who had once trusted Ruby and Claire. One mother described her daughter being locked in a basement for 3 days with only a bucket of water, instructed to reflect on her mistakes. Another father admitted he had been convinced to remove his son from school permanently, isolating him from his peers under the promise it would reset his mind. Each testimony carried the same undertone of regret and disbelief. Parents who thought they were helping their children, but instead had caused harm under professional guidance they assumed was safe. Michael's initial shock turned to anger. The children in these stories weren't strangers; they could easily have been his own. He couldn't stop imagining his kids enduring the same cruel practices, especially since Ruby still had partial custody. The idea that this was happening in plain sight, packaged neatly as family therapy, infuriated him. He knew the public image Ruby and Claire had built: smiling photos, polished websites, glowing testimonials from select clients. But this evidence exposed a hidden layer that the world hadn't seen. Determined to act, Michael began consulting lawyers. He handed over every document, email, and statement, making sure nothing was left out. His legal team recognized the potential scope of the case immediately. This wasn't just about a personal custody dispute, it was the foundation for a larger legal battle that could dismantle Ruby and Claire's entire operation. The plan was clear: file a lawsuit that would drag their practices into the light of a courtroom, where every detail would be public record. But as word of Michael's intentions began to leak, he noticed a shift. Some of the incriminating content vanished from websites and social media pages. Public contact information for Claire was removed overnight. It became clear she had caught wind of what was coming and was already taking steps to protect herself. The quiet tension that followed told Michael one thing: this fight was going to be far more dangerous than he anticipated. When the lawsuit was officially filed, it was like lighting a fuse. Michael's legal team named both Ruby and Claire as defendants, accusing them of fraud, emotional abuse, and conspiracy to endanger minors. The court documents included excerpts from the testimonies, financial records, and disturbing descriptions of their discipline programs. Media outlets caught wind almost instantly, and soon the story was everywhere, headlines screaming about the shocking allegations, news segments dissecting every detail, and social media buzzing with outrage. Parents who had once praised Ruby and Claire's methods began quietly deleting their endorsements, afraid of being associated with the unfolding scandal. Claire responded first, releasing a public statement that painted the lawsuit as nothing more than an act of revenge by a bitter ex-husband. She insisted the program had helped countless families and that any claims of harm were either fabricated or misrepresented. Ruby remained silent, but her legal representatives hinted she would vigorously defend herself. Their strategy was clear: discredit Michael's motives and question the validity of his evidence. But Michael's legal team wasn't relying on accusations alone. They produced bank statements showing large transfers from client payments into accounts under Claire's control, some of which led to offshore banks. These records painted a picture of a profitable business built not on healing families, but exploiting their desperation. Then came the recordings, audio files of Claire instructing parents to deprive children of meals, limit bathroom access, and enforce hours-long punishments without breaks. Her tone in these recordings was calm, almost clinical, making the content even more unsettling. The revelations sent shockwaves through the public. Advocacy groups for child welfare began calling for investigations, and several families who had stayed silent reached out to Michael's team offering to testify. Still, there was an underlying fear. Many believed Claire wouldn't hesitate to manipulate or intimidate witnesses to protect herself. Michael understood that while the legal case was strong, Claire's influence and resources could still pose a serious threat. She had a network of loyal supporters who viewed her as a savior, and dismantling that image would require more than just presenting facts. It would take relentless exposure of the truth. Every day leading up to the trial felt like a countdown, and with each passing hour, the stakes grew higher. Michael knew that if Claire could bury the most damning evidence before it was shown in court, the entire case could collapse before it ever reached a verdict. 2 weeks before the first hearing, an unexpected disaster struck. News broke that a storage unit registered under Claire's name had gone up in flames during the night. Fire crews responded quickly, but the blaze had consumed nearly everything inside. The official report listed the cause as undetermined, though investigators noted signs that pointed toward foul play. When Michael heard the news, dread settled in his chest. He knew what was inside that unit: boxes of physical records, handwritten notes, and videotapes that could have served as crucial evidence in court. Without them, a significant portion of the case's backbone was gone. For a moment, it felt as though the momentum had shifted in Claire's favor. She issued a statement framing the fire as a tragic accident, claiming the unit contained nothing but old office furniture and outdated workshop materials. Her calm, dismissive tone was calculated to reassure her followers. But Michael wasn't convinced for a second. He suspected the fire was deliberate, a desperate move to erase the paper trail before it could surface in court. Just as hope began to waver, a breakthrough came from an unlikely source: Claire's former assistant. Reaching out to Michael's legal team, the assistant revealed they had quietly made digital backups of the most sensitive files before leaving the company months earlier. They claimed to have feared something like this might happen and didn't trust Claire to keep records intact. When the backup drive was handed over, it was like opening a vault of secrets. The contents were deeply disturbing. The pictures clearly showed children being forced to stay in uncomfortable positions for a long time. Scanned journal entries detailing punishments, and internal memos between Claire and Ruby that discussed breaking a child's resistance in almost militaristic terms. The assistant also provided information about a hidden hard drive Claire kept in her home, allegedly containing even more incriminating evidence that had never been shared with anyone outside her inner circle. Michael's team wasted no time. They obtained a search warrant, and within days, law enforcement officers searched Claire's residence. The hard drive was found exactly where the assistant had said it would be, concealed behind a false wall panel in her private office. The discovery electrified the case, shifting momentum back in Michael's direction. What had seemed like a devastating setback now became a turning point, promising to reveal truths that Claire had fought desperately to keep hidden.